fungal weed, job extinction, and Starbucks pride strikes. This is the Chico de Manuel Show. Let's get it. I'm firing up right now. You should too. Something I've ranted about before, and I will continue to rant about again, because it seems to be an eternal nuisance for me, is these motherfuckers. Not just any motherfuckers, these motherfuckers that I don't know. These motherfuckers that I haven't met. These motherfuckers who I have the misfortune of passing while walking up the street or just going to a poker tournament or doing anything. These mangy motherfuckers who ask me for a cigarette and get mad if I decline. Like, buddy, you don't understand. Yesterday, I just went to work and I forgot to bring my cigarettes, which means I either bum some shit I don't want to smoke off somebody else, or I have to buy another pack. And I don't know if you've ever been to the fucking Las Vegas Strip, but if you have, anything within a mile radius of that shit, it's gonna cost more. So my normally $7.50, $8 and some change cigarettes cost $12.59. So let's just do some simple math, even though you simple motherfuckers seem to be incapable of it. So $12.59 over 20 smokes in a pack. That's a $4 increase as to what I'm used to paying. So every cigarette in that pack becomes about what, 20 cents more valuable or some shit like that. Nonetheless, 20 for 12 and 20 for 8, big difference. That's a $4 fucking increase. So that's actually 50 cents more for every goddamn cigarette. But yet you, because you're having a hard day, because you're sweating in the 100-degree weather, just see me. Hey, Carl, you got another cigarette? Hey, man, let me bum a cigarette, man. Let me bum a cigarette. Yo, you got another cigarette? Of course I got another cigarette. Who the fuck do you think I am? A guy that walks around with just one cigarette? The fuck you think I did? Bought a Lucy off the fucking people at the liquor store? Or wherever the fuck I got it? No. I went to work. I made money. I took that money and purchased cigarettes with it. Because I have the liberty to do so. Because I don't want to be a fucking loser walking around. Hey, Cole, you got another cigarette, man? Bruh. Hey, bro, you got another cigarette, man? Let me get a cigarette off you. What the fuck makes you think you're entitled to my cigarettes? And you might say, man, it's just a cigarette, bro. And you're right. It is just a cigarette. But there's one detail you're missing. It's my fucking cigarette. And I get tired of getting any kind of grief for denying people of things that I own. I don't have to share my space with you. I don't have to share my conversation with you. I don't have to share time out of my life with you. If I want to smoke my cigarette, I should be able to do so without freedom of getting pestered or facing negative feedback talk post-denial. The fuck? What the fuck is so different between me and you where if you want cigarettes, you feel like you don't have to pay for them. You don't have to buy them. But you're going to smoke them at my expense. Next time a motherfucker asks me for a cigarette, and I've done this, it's like, tell me a joke. Motherfucker, hit a shuffle ball change, like tap dance, motherfucker, like jump through a hoop. Why the fuck do you just get a cigarette on the basis of like, oh, you just saw somebody else with one? Like, who are you? I don't know you. I don't owe you shit. And then to have the gall, to have the audacity to experience anger and express that shit with me after I've denied you a cigarette. You haven't offered me anything. If people say, yo, can I buy a cigarette off you? Depending on how many I have left, I'd be more than happy to sell you a fucking cigarette. Because you're not a freeloading bum trying to smoke up all my shit because it exists. You fucking prick. I'm not bumming my cigarettes to motherfuckers who at least can't have a good conversation, at least express something more than the fact that you desire a cigarette. Oh, you desire a cigarette? Guess what? So do I. That's why I bought a fucking pack. And not only do I just buy a particular pack, for one, I don't just walk around with a pack of Newport 100s. Everybody smokes Newport 100s. Everybody wants Newport 100s. And that's why Newport 100s cost like $11-12. If you get them on the strip, you might pay $15 for a pack of fucking Newport 100s. Newports are okay, but I don't smoke Newports, okay? I smoke Marlboro Menthol Black 72s. Let's say that again. I smoke Marlboro Menthol Black 72s. If you're familiar with Marlboro Menthol Black 72s, you know that 72s are like the smallest cigarettes that you can buy. At least from Marlboro. 72s is smaller than 100s, smaller than shorts. Them bitches are shorts. Why do I smoke Marlboro Menthol Black 72s, you say? One, back when I was working at the River Poker Supply, I used to smoke Marlboro Menthol Blacks with one of my buddies all the time. As a matter of fact, he's the one that got me smoking Marlboro Menthol Blacks as opposed to smoking Marlboro Menthols or Marlboro Blues or Marlboro Ice. Like, it's just the right menthol flavor for me. Second of all, I know a lot of you pricks ain't smoking Marlboro Menthol Black 72s because you so fucking wound up over a Newport. Everything's got to be a fucking Newport. Like, the most choosingest ass begging motherfuckers ever is a nigga walking around without a goddamn cigarette and sees you with one. I know you don't smoke Marlboro Menthols. I know if I give you a cigarette, you gonna look at that tiny little baby cigarette and be like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, nigga, you wanted a cigarette, right? If you gonna smoke my shit, you gonna smoke what I smoke, or you gonna be a smokeless bum. The fuck? Stop bumming cigarettes. Stop walking around with the mentality that just because you see me, right after you greet me, I owe you a cigarette as some kind of proximity tax for coming near your ass. Fuck you and your lack of cigarettes. You think I care? You really think I care? No, I don't care. As a matter of fact, I would have to care in order to negatively care about that shit. Like, I don't have a fuck to give about your cigarette-less ass. Get some fucking money, buy a fucking pack of cigarettes. Then you'll have 20 of them. Hell, if you bum me a cigarette once in a while, maybe I'll bum you one. Maybe I won't have such a passionate rant about a broke fuck wanting to smoke up all my shit. Because that's what you are. That's exactly what you are. You're a broke fuck who sees another nigga with something that you don't have and you want to get without putting in the same effort that the first person put in to get that shit. And that behavior is something I find despicable, detestable. Fuck you. Get your own goddamn pack of cigarettes, you broke bitch. Eight News Now, Lindsay Lewis. Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board advises consumers to avoid product after testing positive for fungus. And this kind of makes me nervous smoking a blunt right now, but I'm sure I'll be okay. The Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board issued a public health and safety bulletin on Friday advising marijuana consumers to avoid or take caution when consuming a product that tested positive for a fungus. The following cannabis package tested positive for Aspergillus fumigatus and was sold between May 9th and May 21st, 2023. The item is called Phantom Farms Half Ounce SB Dancing Monkey.
The packaging initially passed testing. However, after approving the lot and allowing the transfer of the product into the consumer market, the testing facility learned that its testing reagents may have caused a false test result, the CCB said. After retesting the lot, it was determined to be positive for Aspergillus fumigatus. The CCB said there is no reason to believe the laboratory was aware the cannabis was positive at the time they reported negative results. There's also no reason to believe that the cannabis sales facility had any knowledge of the presence of Aspergillus fumigatus. There are no known reports of illness at this time. Aspergillus fumigatus may cause health issues, including aspergillosis, an infection that can be caused by certain Aspergillus species, including Aspergillus fumigatus. So, if you're like me, I generally don't smoke my weed with fungus in it, so I'm not quite familiar with what the fuck that is. So you don't have to do it. I took the liberty of researching it, and it's not super complex, but, I decided to do it anyways. So, Aspergillus fumigatus is a fungus. It's a saprophytic fungus that plays an essential role in recycling environmental carbon and nitrogen. Its natural ecological niche is the soil, wherein it survives and grows on organic debris. Okay, the Trichocomaceae family, fungi kingdom, Ascomycota, the division, and the Eurotialis, Eurotiales. I be trying to talk too fast sometimes. Now, how do you get it? It can be found throughout the environment, including soil, plant matter, household dust. It can also produce airborne spores called conidia. Most people can inhale many of these spores on a daily basis. How to get rid of it? Triazole, antifungal drugs, And what does it cause? The types of health problems it causes: allergic reactions, lung infections, and infections in other organs. So this is in the fucking weed. And I had to look, when I looked it up, it used the word, it said saprophytic. And then when I looked up saprophytic, it gave me, it said it's a chemoheterotroph. And that's an organism deriving energy by ingesting intermediates or building blocks that it is incapable of creating on its own. So if that's the case, I think I know a few chemoheterotrophs in person that's not fucking funguses. But I digress. So, what's my take on this? Well, thankfully I don't smoke Phantom Farm, so I'm not super fucking worried about that. That's a good thing. But imagine how fucked up it'd be to just get some weed and you smoke that shit, and now you start getting lung infections and shit. You're feeling like you got COVID and all this shit, and you start becoming a conspiracy theorist all over again. I'm happy that the system is complex enough and organized enough to where the specific lot and batch can be isolated to which got the fungus. Like, we can figure out exactly where that shit originated, where it came from. That's cool. I've been smoking weed for almost 20 years, and I've never heard of this. I wasn't really aware of fungi in weed, but, that's something to be aware of. You get some shit. It's like a little too fucking moist. It's like just like thick and danky, and you thinking that shit's some bomb ass weed. Next thing you know, you smoke that shit and you fucking wheezing like you got a goddamn stoma, or you're like, you don't want no stop smoking commercials and shit. That's fucked up. But ultimately, I don't think this is gonna slow me down any bit. It's definitely going to raise my awareness. I'm gonna be, once I get done with this, I'm gonna do some advanced research and see how to locate and notice and find that shit on its own, because who the fuck wants to just go get a fucking, especially a half ounce, and then the half ounce is like got fungus in it. Like, I assume it's not a lot, you don't have to do much. Like, the area of neglect can be very small for something like this to happen, especially when it said it's found in the soil and all this and that. And I'm sure like they got all kind of testing regimens. I don't know exactly how the legal per se weed process in terms of growing it and testing it and checking for shit. I don't know how that works, but I would assume there's some type of rigorous testing. Like, they run it through, like, they take some of the soil and put like some little card in it or something, and it changes colors if certain additives or funguses is present or some shit like that. I'm sure they go through that. So it seems like somebody was fucking sleeping on their job and could have had some devastating consequences. It's like on Bar Rescue, and John Taffer walks into the fucking kitchen of a restaurant, and it's like fucking mold, and there's like dead rodents and all kind of spores and just neglect and shit. Like, the food that's on your plate is coming from that kitchen. Like, you're getting people sick due to like things. It's not even like necessarily difficult tasks, but it's just things that you have to do if you're going to run a kitchen that's going to serve food to the public. Like you have to keep that shit clean. Like nobody's just walking around from restaurant to restaurant asking, can they inspect your kitchen before they place an order? Because it's like, that's not what's on my mind when I'm going out to eat. I shouldn't have to worry about the cleanliness of the fucking kitchen in the restaurant. Just like I shouldn't have to worry about the cleanliness and orderliness and protocol procedure following from these weed suppliers. Now, granted, this is the only time, I've been in Nevada for 2 years. This is the only time I've heard of some shit like this. It's probably happened more. I don't keep up with the Nevada Cannabis Control Board and like the latest breakouts and epidemics and shit, but it's good to be knowledgeable that this is, that it happened, and that you can never be too careful. Like even when you're getting your shit from the dispensary, one of the main reasons I go to the dispensary is because I want some sense of like guaranteed purity. Like I know when my shit's coming from the dispensary, it's got some serial numbers. It's got like the batch that it was grown and measured in has been recorded and is noted. And the reasons like that, shit like this can be found out. So this is one of the reasons why I like to smoke from dispensaries and not be buying fuckers off the street. But at the same time, like, we got to be on top of that shit. It seems like for the vast majority of it, we're on top of it. It's not like I'm hearing about a new fucking breakout every goddamn week or month or regularly at all. But, they warning us. And like, I am a weed consumer, especially a weed consumer of dispensaries. That's why I tend to like to get from the same few growers. Like I like Circle S Farms a lot. I like, goddamn, that's when I used to get from Cureleaf. I can't remember. I like the shit that New Leaf has. Like they got particular strains that I've been seeing since I've been moved out here, or at least it's from the same grower. Like if it's Circle S, or if it's anything, that's 420 Sahara, or if it's anything from like maybe like Old Pal, even though that's like a lower grade. There's a few others I can't think of them right now, but I know they do some particular procedures that like, ensure that you're getting like the finest quality shit. Like you smoking it, you seeing white ashes, like you're getting a good, clean high. You're not like, and it's predictable. It's something that you can look forward to. Like when you know what type of high you want, you can go straight to this and get that, So if you're in Nevada, keep your eyes peeled, whether you're in Nevada or not, actually. When you're getting some weed from a dispensary, don't get no checking. Make sure it's not dry and crunchy, or make sure it's not egregiously moist or anything like that. And be on the lookout for that shit. You don't got to be checking it every day, but at least I'm going to be looking. I'm going to do my due diligence. At least be looking out once, twice a month, just checking up. And if I can subscribe to some type of email or something, I'm going to do that, because this is something I like to be out in front of as opposed to behind when it comes time for a motherfucking fungus in my weed. Like, that's just unacceptable. Will Vidka, finance buzz. 15 jobs that will be as extinct as dinosaurs in the 2030s. Imagine if, instead of Dave desperately trying to get Hal to open the pod bay doors in 2001, A Space Odyssey, he was begging the Rogue computer to read his resume. As more and more companies lean on AI to scan applicant resumes, it's becoming more challenging to land an interview and get a job that will help you get ahead financially. As we approach the next decade, the following professions could be on their way to the dustbin of history, or at least look a whole lot different thanks to advancements in AI. Goddamn flies, get off me. So yeah, I'm gonna just go through these. Number 1, assembly line jobs. Number 2, data analysts. Number 3, bank tellers. Okay, so assembly line jobs, this is like the people who stand in one spot and like engage in a repetitive motion that ultimately contributes to a finished product, such as a car or a heavy appliance or something like that. It's fucked up that, robots are a good thing, and like they definitely help create some of the processes that, we thrive off of and utilize in our day-to-day society for, the advancement of our, of our lives, of advancement of civilization. And I just don't think anybody, it seems like, in my experience, things like this are a slippery slope. Like whenever you have something that's like new and revolutionary, like it's usually just the first step in like completely changing the way it's done. So like imagine before assembly line jobs, like assembly line jobs were like the fucking Like they took the world by storm. Like Henry Ford and his fucking assembly line. It was just a much more productive way to do things. And like, you know, now we've got robots, which is a much more productive way to do things. And like, they're gonna replace humans. And it seems to me that replacing humans is not, like, you can replace some of the humans, but like, if humans created these things, that means they're dependent on us. I don't care how artificially intelligent they are. Like, if they were created by humans, like, without our intellect and our advancements and our capabilities, it wouldn't exist. So it's fucked up that assembly line jobs, like, I agree with, you know, robots in some of the sector, but to completely replace humans by 2030, which is like right around the corner, in the 2030s, you should say, it's gonna be fucked up. Data analysts, you know, bank tellers, which, I mean, I don't think, I mean, if you're gonna treat like a Chase Bank like a McDonald's, where you just walk up to the kiosk and you only interact with a human if you need some type of advanced interaction, I mean, like, what's the convenience of that? Like, it's convenient in the sense that you don't have to deal with a person. Like, is that the convenience factor behind it? Just like eliminating the human experience from it? You're just dealing with a machine, and if you're dealing with something that a machine is not hardwired to like fire off as one of its main capabilities, then it upgrades you to a human experience, because, you know, most of these things don't require humans, and everything is all about speed and just doing shit faster. Like, what's wrong with the speed that we're at? Like, why should think, you know, at what point is speed too fast? You know? Next up, they got data entry clerks, which I think would be the same as like data analysts to a degree. Well, the entry clerks is the ones who put the data in. The analysts is the ones who compile the data. So, I mean, yeah, you got me there. But data entry clerks, cashiers, drivers, and fast food workers. Now, cashiers, that's a pretty clear one. Like, they've already been on their way out. And I can understand companies not wanting to deal with human error in the realm of actual money. And then seeing this, how inflation is getting ever so higher, less people are probably carrying cash. Like, there's really no need for the human aspect if everything's just going to boil down to the swipe of a card or the tap of a card or inserting a chip, you know. And I'm just not a big fan of removing the human component from professions that have been around since the beginning of business. Like, you're going to always need a cashier. Like, you're going to always want some kind of human interaction with that money. I don't care how advanced or how capable the AI is at detecting something. Like, the human element is important, not just because the human element is an important component of business. Like, when you do business, like now we're doing business over screens. Everybody's just talking over Zoom meetings and Skyping and shit. And you don't get that face-to-face element. Like, you don't get the real buzz per se from that. Like, you know, like removing the human interaction, you know, in some of these professions, especially like drivers, AI is gonna replace drivers. Like, why do you need a car that drives itself? Like, they have cars that drive themselves. They're called like trains, and they're called like buses, and they don't really drive themselves, but like the majority of the passengers on said vessel do not have to worry about steering or operating the vehicle. Like, if you want to go to work, now you could just get in your car hung over and just have your car drive you to work. Or fuck your car, or just drive to work and do your job for you, because you're not necessary. All right. Things like these are like slippery slopes. Like, a lot of these advancements that we have are like slippery slope. It started with some minor amended version of the grand scheme of it, which then eventually evolved into the grand scheme of it. And then when something else comes along that's better than that, you implement it slowly just to test it. And then boom, you put put all the eggs in that basket, you know. Fucking fast food workers, like, what, are they really gonna have machines cook the food now? Do you really want your Big Mac cooked by a fucking robot that doesn't really understand the taste component? Or like, you know, it's just all, you know, it's supposed to be like smart technology. Like, and I'm not against smart technology. Like, smart technology is one of the reasons I'm able to fucking even do this podcast right now. But I think smart technology with the component to remove the human experience simply because it may be cheaper or slightly more efficient is not, I don't want to say asinine or absurd, but it's not, I think it's a dangerous path to go down when you're just talking about breeding out the human experience. Like, more people are lonely right now. More people are less, like, especially like senior citizens, you know, like the boomers, as they would call them, like, all these things seem like it's like pushed under the guise of convenience and advancement, but it's really just dividing us and like keeping us further away from each other, and not it's robbing us of the human experience. Like we need each other to live, and like all these conveniences, so-called conveniences, eliminate procedures that prior to them being brought into play was like an enjoyable and meaningful part of the human experience. Like we're too good for our own benefit. Like we don't really realize, it's like we don't realize how bad shit could get, you know? Medical diagnosticians, receptionists, taxi dispatchers, telemarketers. I mean, medical diagnosticians, like I said, you really want your doctor to be a fucking robot with a bunch of AI programming and shit that, like, you know, hasn't really experienced it, but is just programmed with a bunch of possible algorithms to run, you know, to be somewhat dynamic. Like, is that really what you want? Making your fucking medical diagnosis receptionists? Like, it's just like taking the cashiers out of McDonald's and shit, you know, out of fast food restaurants. Like, you're removing that human experience. Like, and it's at this point, this example, you know, I know it's all about how robots are going to replace it, but like, could you imagine going to like a restaurant and like there was no waiter, there was no waitress. It was just like a fucking thing on wheels. It kind of just rolled around, like it had like little conveyor belt wheels and shit, and it just rolls around, and it asks you what you want, and it rotates to you, and you touch all the buttons and shit, and you don't have to tip it, and like it fucking puts on little smiley faces and shit, and cracks little can material at you, you know. It's just made to acknowledge everybody in your family and all this and that, but it's like all that to not have to tip somebody, like what, like. And then the people who need those jobs are not going to have those jobs. So, like, what are they going to do? Like, what is going to become of them? Like, you know, a lot of these jobs are, like, perfect for some people, and they fit the industry well. Like, why would you want to just modify these industries in such a way when it's not really necessary, and it ultimately results in less human interaction and, you know, excessive convenience? You know, telemarketers, like it says this job is already pretty much dead. As of May last year, fewer than 100,000 people hold a telemarketing job, and robocalls have been annoying us all for years. Voice recognition technology lets AI handle customer questions and officially make outbound calls. Like, they've got AI making outbound calls, and I've had some of these calls before, and as impressive as it is, it's not really that impressive. It's like, what the fuck is the point of making AI for something I'm not going to talk to anyways? Like, I can tell it's not a person. Like, sometimes I may have to listen for a second, but I can tell when I'm dealing with a real human. And, you know, I understand these call centers, they have, like, ways to, like, kind of filter out people with easy issues that don't necessarily that don't necessarily require you to speak to a human. You know, it's good to filter those out when you can. But, like, that automated shit, unless I'm paying a bill, like, for some questions, I really need the human experience. I need to talk to somebody. I need to understand shit in ways that fucking FAQs and a robot can't do. You know, and that shit, it should be important. It should be something that's not really negotiable when you talk about improving a situation or removing something from it. Like, that's an uneditable circumstance. Last but not least, they got typists, warehouse workers, and writers. You know, warehouse workers, Amazon has been using robots to sort and move products for over a decade, but Bain & Co. found that 70% of warehouse jobs could be lost to automation. Like, at some point, you got to, like, accept whatever margin of error comes from having humans doing these roles. Like, we need these jobs. Like, you can't really compete with a robot in the sense that, like, the robot is programmed to be the most efficient version of you in that role. And with the ability to multitask and, like, background complete shit, like, in that realm, I don't care what degree you have, you can't really compete with that. But why would you lose your job to a robot? It's one thing to lose your job to somebody that's more qualified or better suited or whatnot, whatever reason, but to a fucking robot who some people made just because they don't want you to come to work, or it's a certain whatever that they trying to avoid, that they feel this would be more useful than having humans like they've always had. Writers, as the Writers Guild strike that erupted in May show, writers don't want to be replaced with AI like ChatGPT. This ChatGPT shit can write you an entire song. Like, you tell, write me an R&B song. In 2 seconds. A whole hook, chorus, blah, 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 all of that. Like, it can be done. And it's like, doesn't all this shit kind of like defeat the purpose of like, all this convenience? Like, you're never going to have to do anything. Like, all you're going to have to do is exist while life gets lived for you. To me, that shit just seems kind of toxic. It seems obviously toxic. I know there's people who see it that way and speak out against it, but like, we've gotten to this point in our culture where everything is about self-satisfaction. It's about pleasure and instant gratification, and it is eroding the culture away. And AI, as good as it is, as effective as it is pretty much just as bad. We need the human experience. We need some of these jobs to stay with humans. We don't need fucking driverless cars. Like, what the fuck? Like, what's wrong with having somebody drive it? Like, driverless cars won't crash. Like, it's an object moving. It's liable to crash into anything wherever there are objects that are stationary. Like, it's just physics, man. We need to just appreciate as a whole. We all need to sit back and appreciate what we got. Because in my opinion, shit's about to change drastically, and a lot of motherfuckers ain't going to be ready for it. Reuters. Hillary Russ, Caroline Veletkovich. Starbucks strike over pride decor follows LGBTQ anger on hours and benefits. Workers at dozens of U.S. Starbucks locations held strikes on Sunday to express their outrage over the accusations by the Baristas Union that managers at several U.S. cafes removed rainbow flags and decorations supporting LGBTQ Pride Month. About a dozen Starbucks workers picketed outside New York's Astor Place location in Lower Manhattan on Sunday afternoon near the route of the city's Pride Parade, chanting, "New York is a union town. On strike, shut it down," end quote. Union members handed out flyers and talked to passerbys about the action, while several customers chose not to enter in support of the strike. With Pride marches underway in New York City, San Francisco, Chicago, and Starbucks' hometown Seattle, some baristas and other workers at the coffee chain said they were angered by the dispute. A spokesperson said on Sunday that, quote, "We unwaveringly support the LGBTQIA2+ community. It would be inaccurate to report that Starbucks stores are banning any decorations as there has been no change to company policy on this matter," end quote. Well, continue. "We remain deeply concerned by false information being spread about our inclusive store environments, our company culture, and the benefits we offer our partners," the spokesperson said. Though the conflict is gaining attention now, it began brewing a year ago when the Workers United Union said the company threatened union organizers, many of whom say that they are queer or trans, with reduced hours that would leave them unable to qualify for health insurance, which covers gender reassignment surgery and other affirming procedures. Starbucks has denied the change of coverage, calling the accusations false claims, quote, in a June 14 letter to Workers United International President Lynn Foxon, seen by Reuters. The company's health insurance has covered gender confirmation surgery since 2012 and 2018, and also began covering treatment that other plans considered cosmetic, including breast augmentation, hair transplants, and facial feminization. The coffee chain also denied that it had banned pride decorations, calling the allegation, quote, blatant fear-mongering by the union, according to the letter. Starbucks spent decades building its reputation as a progressive company that supports LGBTQ+ workers and customers. In 1988, it began offering hard-to-find perks such as health insurance for same-sex domestic partners. Later, it entered a legal fray at the U.S. Supreme Court in support of marriage equality. Quote, "Once we decided to unionize, they were like, we've had enough of this progressive stuff," said Jackie Zhu, 21, a shift supervisor at a New York City Starbucks at Astor Place, where workers held a strike on Sunday. Maggie McKeon, who was headed into Starbucks at Astor Place, turned around after learning about the strike. Quote, "If people are going to be affected by this, then I'm with them, not the company," McKeon said. Since late 2022, Starbucks has been in bargaining talks with some of the more than 300 unionized company-owned U.S. locations. Pro-union baristas have asked Starbucks for stronger protections from discrimination, among other proposals. So far, none of the newly unionized U.S. cafes have struck a deal with the companies for a labor contract. Change of tune. In 2020, then Starbucks employee Arthur Pratt drew a version of the chain's siren logo with flowing rainbow hair to celebrate Pride. The company shared the image nationwide and even posted it on Instagram, Pratt told the Seattle Gay News. But in November, Pratt, a trans man, was fired in what the union says was retaliation for supporting the organizing drive at his Portland, Oregon location. This year, he made a new poster ahead of Pride Month that called out the company, reading, quote, "You can't say you're pro-queer and be anti-union." Still, the Human Rights Campaign, which raised corporations on how equitable their policies and benefits are for LGBTQ+ employees, gave Starbucks a perfect score for 2022, along with more than 800 other companies. HRC did not return requests for comment. But as union organizing heated up last year, more employees said their schedules became erratic and their time was often cut below the 20 hours per week they needed to qualify for health insurance. The union's allegation is one of hundreds of complaints it has filed with the National Labor Relations Board. Sam Cornetta, a barista at Farmingville, New York Starbucks, who joined coworkers on strike at Astor Place on Sunday, said the company was alienating LGBTQ+ workers. Quote, they've used their chain to be a progressive, inclusive company to kind of attract those kinds of people. Cornetta said, there's a performative aspect. Well, there's a performative aspect. Hey, that's one way to put it. To quote Matt Walsh, what he says, like, all of these people are just theater kids. Like, they live in a fantasy world. I don't know what kind of degree of accountability that they, use to live their lives on, but it's not, they're out of step. Like, I'm all for having Pride Month. You want to have your month, you fly your flags, which most people fly them year round anyways, but you fly your flags, you have your parades, you gather in the streets in your avant-garde outfits and whatnot, and you do your thing. And, the people who don't want to participate in it, like, why not leave them out? Like, at first it was just about Pride Month. Now you got so many people under the damn umbrella. Like, it's not really so much a group. It's like a doctrine now. Like, it's a real heavy ideology with like really, really serious implications and really dangerous possibilities. Like, why do you need your sexuality represented in the workplace? Like, why does your workplace have to be on board with it? Like, unless you're working like a sex job, unless you're working a job where like who you prefer to fuck is like an actual deal. Like, what's the fucking, like, why do we need this at work? Why do we need the military supporting Pride? Like, it's starting to seem like a revolution code name agenda type deal, and not like a human rights, humanitarian, fucking kind of egalitarian hookup. Like, it's seeming like it's lost that drive altogether. Like, it's definitely not, that's not what it is, if it's anything. And, it's really strange to see that these people are fighting this hard for the right to do things like have abortions and just send bad messages to children and engage in behavior that's just all about the self-affirmation and hedonism. Like, the hedonism philosophy is like buried at the root of all of this Pride Month, of all of this outrage about everything. Like, never has there been a time where you had to be this motherfucking PC. You had to walk on such sensitive eggshells simply to have a livelihood. Like, if you upset something with something you say, which the wider audience you have, the higher the likelihood that something you say is going to accept people, because, it's just like a heel in like wrestling and some shit. Like, people pay to see the heel get his ass whooped. It's not that they necessarily fans of him. Like, they will root for the other person simply because they're an opponent of you, So, like, all that outrage, all that negative shit, like, it gets you, we've been giving in to this shit, and like I was just saying in the previous segment, like, everything is like a fucking slippery slope. Like, when you have one hard set rule, and there are exceptions to every rule, but when you allow that exception to create like a continuity loophole with like increasing returns, like that shit multiplies. Like, you start off with this little bitty thing, and then they ride that momentum, and now you have a little bitty thing times 2, and they ride that momentum, now you have a little bitty thing times 4, and they keep riding the momentum. The next thing you know, you either got one giant thing or several dozen little things that have just like, the rubber band has just been stretched and stretched and stretched. But eventually you're going to have to relieve that tension, or that's just going to break, And I think we're at the point where things are going to break. Like, I'm generally an easygoing, friendly person. Like, I don't mind people having different thoughts and opinions and beliefs as me. Like, I don't mind differences in people. I actually appreciate differences in people, diversity in that regard. But, it's at the point where if somebody holds and kind of promotes and like propagandizes into to whatever degree that they can, to whatever degree that their voice has scope, they propagandize that left wing, that leftism, that fucking shit is just, I don't see how we can maintain any kind of relationship, even on a business level. Like how are me and you, with the way that we view the world, which neither of us are right, neither of us are wrong. But with that being said, like, we are like destined to clash, and I don't see the need to continue to fight a battle on something that I believe in so strongly, like that I would consider almost like a paradigm. Like, I don't have to fight. It's not my job as a human, as a citizen, to walk around like installing paradigms in people's heads or installing my paradigm in people's heads. Like, you know, I share my thoughts and ideas, and, you know, I kind of take what I get with that. And people share their ideas, and I take what I get with that, and I use that to go about the future in a manner which is more likely to be beneficial and fulfilling and rewarding for me. You know, there's no need for me to conflict. Like, we can disagree, we can see shit two different ways, and I'm not telling you that my way is something you should adopt, and I would hope that would be the same behavior that I get in return. But I would hypothesize that Starbucks is getting iffy on its LGBTQIA JKDMZZFF5 4 and 13 race car irrelevant. You know, it would seem like their allegiance is, especially over the past couple of years, is becoming kind of shaky, or it's like seeming like it's not as solid as it used to be. At least from what I can tell. I don't really follow LGBTQ relations in Starbucks like that. However, it seems like every couple of months I'm hearing about some new employee fucking concern at Starbucks, and they are mad, and now the company's making some quick, swift response about it. Like the two people who went in there and they said they wanted to use the bathroom, but they didn't buy nothing, and they just sat there and didn't buy nothing. And then when they asked them to leave, they said they didn't have to leave, and then people was on the side of the non-paying customers who came in and just sat down and like didn't buy nothing. Like, that would be okay. Like, unless you're like an employee or something, and even still, to some regard, like, you can't just come in here and just sit down all goddamn day. This is a business, you know? And like, some things you have to, I would think, as one of the higher ups, as the brass of a company, and when you have several thousands of employees working on the ground level, dealing with like the public and shit like that, you know, it's certain ultimatums that you have to give them. Like, you can't acquiesce into every demand. Like, as long as there's like a degree of fairness that's like universally recognizable and like creates a safe and effective, efficient workplace, you know, some things you're going to get, some things you're just not going to get. It's that way in every company. And like, if you can present a clear argument that could work out to be as mutually beneficial as possible, you know, perhaps change could be discussed. Like, we're not ever just going to agree to change anything, because we have things the way they are for a reason, which is like, I think, the basis of conservatism. And it's understanding that tenet is what's getting me to like kind of come around with my thinking and like be opinionated and have a rather strict organization, like, or order, you know, categorizing of like morals in which I have to walk down based on the observations of my life, like the things that I've seen, my perspective on everything. Like, I have to, you know, over time, those need to become more rigid, you know, in order for me for my thoughts to be productive in any way. Like, I think it's a lot of values that we were supposed to conserve that have not been conserved in the interest of people pleasing, someone else's happiness. Like, yeah, you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but you realize it says the pursuit of happiness, not the pursuit of happiness in no sense guarantees the reward of happiness, you know, nor does it say that happiness is like the most paramount and primary and important goal or feeling or finish line you should be chasing, you know? Like happiness is just something that's a generally positive and good feeling, you know, is when you're like the most appreciative of life. Things are kind of going your way, you know. You look around and you're happy and you're grateful for the situation that you're in, you know, happy to be alive, you know. But what would you do without a struggle? Like if there was no struggle, you wouldn't value that happiness as much the more often that it was around. And the fact that you're always chasing happiness is the Achilles heel of the hedonism philosophy. It tacitly like reassures that you are in search of something that you do not have, which is happiness. And the fact that you're in search of happiness is not guaranteed, nor is it permanent. What goes up must come down. So you're like on a losing, like you're traveling down a path with a dead end. And you keep walking closer to the dead end as if there's a way around it, or, you know, some shortcuts, or, you know, you got the sauce. But you probably don't have the sauce because the sauce is not that easy to get. If you want real Italian sauce, you fucking got to go to Italy. How hard is it to go to Italy? Depends on where you are geographically, you know, and your ability to utilize resources. So I know I went off on like a whole other tangent, you know, just about other things, but like my opinion on this Starbucks shit, like who fucking cares, man? Like even in Vegas, I remember a couple years ago, like for like at least a good proportion of the month, buildings the casinos that had like, you know, signs on them, like the Sahara's got like Sahara on the building. They had rainbow on their shit for a while. I remember seeing rainbow, I think on the Strat had some type of rainbow display. There was a couple casinos down in this area that had rainbow displays. And it's like, Pride Month is for you guys. It's not for everybody. You guys are trapped in this fallacy as to where if you don't get the affirmation you're looking for in others, then there is no progress, you know, in your eyes until everyone does, and you will stop at nothing to achieve that goal. Which I guess is good to have motivation in life, but when your motivation is literally anathema to the progress and forward movement of a civilization, you know, what the fuck? I am eternally grateful to the game of poker. Playing it, dealing it, where it's taken me over the years, my relationship with it. I think I'm going to be a poker player until the day I die. And I've been a poker dealer for a long time. I've made a lot of money due to the kindness and generosity and understanding of other people who play the game. And it's something I take very seriously. It's something I'm deeply appreciative for. Like, I can never, ever thank enough all the people who have given me tokens of appreciation, that have allowed me to live my life, that have allowed me to travel and do some of the things and meet some of the people and experience some of the experiences that I've had. And I've had days where I've been fed up with poker. I've had days where I felt like being a poker dealer wasn't a big fucking deal, or, you know, it was nothing to really pursue as, you know, my niche. But I think I'm coming around in that regard. Like, I just really love the game of poker. Like, it's done so much for me, you know, in many, many ways. Like, I've been privileged to have some of the experiences that some people will never have. I've seen so many hands of action. I've met so many people, and I've got so many more to meet. And today, I just wanted to really acknowledge how grateful and thankful I am, and how happy and fulfilled in life that the game of poker and the people who play it is to me. Thank you, poker. Thank you, poker community, poker players. A big part of me is to be credited to you and your existence and everything you do and everything you've done. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm forever grateful.